Hello everyone and welcome back to our videos channel and our little Chia experiment. Initially I didn't intend to make another video about Chia before next Friday, but there are a few things which have come to our attention which I just want to highlight and just have a quick introduction about what is going on. So just the usual stuff we have to talk about. So the net space has decreased a little bit from yesterday, but the difficulty has risen to 2144, which is kind of surprising with the net space declining. But yeah, we don't know how the correlation actually is. The most notable thing about Chia at the moment, of course, is the shrinking volume, the shrinking trade volume, which puts it in a difficult position when you compare Chia's price at the moment, which is significantly higher than all the other coins with similar trade volumes. So I will just sort the coins after value, and then when we look for 22 million trade value, 20 million, where is it? Here. Now we're at the region of 20 million trade value during the last 24 hours, and then you can see that there's a significant difference in the coin prices of coins with similar trade volume than if you compare it to the Chia coin. So that is something which you have to keep in mind, that price manipulation is easier, much easier, when you have a lower trade volume. So I just want to point it out that this trade volume around the 20 million mark is significantly lesser than we have seen before, and of course $500,000 buy or sale now has a far greater impact on the price than it used to be when the price was much higher. And to make the point, we can see that the margin where Chia coin is trading at the moment is very narrow. So that means, in my opinion, and as I have watched the volume and the price over the last few hours, there seems to be a bit of a, how can I put it, a bit of a concerted action for the price not to go below a certain price. which yeah, is a bit concerning. So the actual thing which, or the theme for today for our Chia is that we have put together some information about what Chia wants to do, the Chia company, and that what the repercussions for that for the coin of that for the coin could be, because apart from Mr. Hoffman's statements that there is an IPO planned, or there's the attempt to have an IPO, the information which comes from Chia generally speaking is marketing speech, but we don't hear anything which is specific. We don't hear anything which is yeah, how can I say it? Giving some transparent insight into what is going on. So even with with a lot of research, we couldn't figure out what is actually going on. So we can't find any information about how much Chia is spending as a going concern. I couldn't find any numbers about how much money Chia is actually spending at the moment. It is all very opaque. Maybe somebody else is more successful than I am, but I couldn't find anything apart from general information, but I couldn't find any specific information. And of course, I couldn't find anything about what the actual ownership structure at the moment is, who owns what is very opaque, and how many shares have pre-issued, and what is actually the status of the financial status of the Chia company. We know that they have raised 61 million. We know that some people who have given money to the company are on the board of directors now. So that is what is in the public knowledge. But how the money is actually spent, what the roadmap is, what the actual projects are, how many people are working on it, how many man hours are spent, and what are the expenses, what are the future earnings. Nothing is in the public space as far as I could figure out. But we know that there is a stash of 21 million pre-mined coins, and at the moment those 21 million pre-mined coins represent a market value in quotes of round about 500 million. So that is a jackpot. I mean, obviously that is a lot of money. No, not 500 million. At the moment, it represents a market value of round about 5 billion. If we would value the coin with $24, then it would be around about 500 million. At the moment, it represents a market value of 5 billion, which is a huge jackpot for everybody who controls the Chia company, as the Chia company is the beneficiary of the pre-mined coins. So what will it be? Chia company at the moment is a so-called unicorn. That is a privately owned company which has no obligations to publish any numbers whatsoever apart from whatever marketing speak they will publish, but they are under no obligation to publish any internals. And as it is a private company, it is all very private. And they are called unicorns because they have reached a critical mass which would make it possible to emerge from the uh, enchanted forest and go into the public space as either a public listed company or an official IPO, which would give us more information and would put the company under more scrutiny. So at the moment, as I said, it is a so-called unicorn, a private company owned by different venture capital companies, and the founders, and under no obligations to publish any hard numbers. From what Mr. Hoffman said is we know that they are planning either an IPO or a Spec. So let's have a look what would change with an IPO. Let's start from the bottom, because if we know why what an IPO means, then we can go further on to the stack, to the spec. So initial public offering, that means the company will be listed on a stock exchange and you will have all the duties and control mechanisms of the SEC and the SEC regulations, which means that they would need to publicize their earnings and losses, and not only future earnings and estimation of future earnings, but they would need to publicize their earnings and losses, and of course there would be a valuation on the pre-mined stock. And at the moment this valuation, in my opinion, would be zero, because it would be pretty difficult for them to value the pre-mined stock on the basis of any future earnings, as that would be pretty difficult to get along with the SEC regulations. And if we have an asset within the balance sheet, then it is obviously much more difficult under SEC regulations to just move those assets along and around as you see fit. So in my opinion, an IPO with the track record the Chia company has at the moment, given that they have not published any numbers at all, would be a bit of a steep hill to climb. And as they have no business at the moment, which I'm aware of, so they are not actually working in the market with running projects which I know of. So I have not heard about any contracts they have already done with banks or financial institutions. I have no knowledge of any money flowing in from any contracts at the moment. So that in my opinion would be an absolute no-no for any IPO because of the numbers which would only so they would only publish losses, and that would they make them probably not very appealing to any investor. We know that the valuation from the venture capital round was about 500 million, but that was long before the market crash. And I would say, with the track record of the last 2 months, there isn't much which has been attributed to the value, so it might be a lot lesser than the estimated 500 million were 2 months ago. So the option for which Mr. Hoffman also talked about is a so-called spec. And a spec is basically a merger of a listed company, which is only a shell company, with a company which is then taken under the wings of the shell company, and this with this merger you practically take the startup to the to turn it into a listed company. The spec has a 2-year window in which the company has actually to be acquired. So far, there has not been any interest publicized, so we don't know if there is a spec company, a shell company, or however you call it, a donor company which is acquiring the Chia company. But the main difference between a spec merger and an initial IPO is that during a spec merger, you don't actually need to publicize your numbers in the way that you have to do it with an IPO. For a spec merger, it is enough to file your prospected earnings and losses. So you can avoid the scrutiny which is uh, immediately applied if you do an IPO. And that in turn also means that your freedom in, how can I put it, in putting a price to your pre-mined stock of 21 million coins is much greater than it would be if you do an actual IPO. And that in turn would be an incentive to keep the price for the Chia coin in a region which is, yeah, favorable. It would make the company, the Chia company, much more attractive for any spec investor if it looks like there's a war chest of $5 billion involved in the merger. So that is a point which you might want to consider when you have a look at the price of Chia. And also, if you are thinking about investing in the Chia IPO or Spec in whatever way, you should read about what the Security and Exchange Commission has to say about specs, and also what the difference between an IPO and a spec is. Of course, they could also just list the company at an exchange without an IPO, but that would not allow the inflow of any money immediately. So that would only be an exit strategy for the people involved in the founding of the company. So those are the things we have discussed over lunch and supper, and we just wanted to share it with the rest of the YouTube people. And yeah, we have deliberately chosen a time when the traffic is not so high, and we don't consider this as one of our most successful videos, but we will nonetheless publish it because we think it is worth discussing it, and it might influence some kind of decision making process when you think about investing into hardware to mine Chia coins, and also when you think about maybe investing into Chia as the company. So my biggest concern is the lack of transparency and basically the way how the people have been treated who, in quotes, worked for the success of the net space, and that doesn't give me the necessary confidence and hope that all this is played out in a way that it will actually benefit the people who are giving their time, electricity and effort to provide the net space for the company, and that they are in the end rewarded in a way which is adequate to their efforts. That is what we wanted to share. So we will see, as I said, how the next week pans out. To my knowledge, a huge chunk of Tether has been transferred into a an exchange today, so we will see how that pans out. At the moment, everything is green, but you also need to take into account that, as I said, the rumors are that a huge amount of tethers today has been transferred into an exchange, and we don't know if the what is going on uh, in the market has anything to do with with this transfer. So be cautious about what is going on, and what we know is that obviously the silver shorting is running into trouble. There are some very interesting things about what is going on in the silver market on Wall Street Silver at the moment, and an interview with the guy from the Canadian Silver Fund. Uh, and if that goes on for the next 3 months, I would Sprott is a silver holding which is buying silver at the moment and storing it in vaults. And if that goes on for the next 3 months, 6 months maybe, if that movement is successful, then we might see some kind of interesting news on the banking front, because that would impact the balance sheet of some major banks, and we might eventually see some kind of reaction in the market. But as I said, this is very early. We need at least 3 or more months to see any outcome. This is not done in the short run. So that was it for today. It is way past midnight here in England now, so I wish you a good night, and we will see if the volume goes down any further and how the price for the Chia coin develops over the next few days. I just wanted to make sure that we share our thoughts. So please like and subscribe the video if you think it is worth it, and have a very good night.